Hooray, we're back. Yay! Welcome, everybody. I just so appreciate those of you who do tune in. I know that we're a small group for now, but I just wanted to say, especially the people who have been with me like all the way since back in the Quilting Cowboy days, that I truly, truly appreciate you being here. And it just means the world to me that you guys would support me through all this craziness. You guys are like, you're doing what now? Life's a journey, is it not? Anyhow, today's topic, right, being unwounded and unwoundable. It's a big topic and kind of concept in shamanism. The idea is that you are, in the present moment, attached to your own personal holiness, right? And that you are not wounded from the past, nor can you be wounded in the present or future, right? And it's part of the, we have that power stack that we kind of associate with, and most people are aware of, like the power animals or spirit animals and things that we work with. But beyond that, one of the key players in our power stack is the angel of neutrality. As I've talked about before, her and I have had an ever-going challenging relationship as I've tried to define what that looks like for me, because I just wasn't raised with that, a sense of that at all. The way that we functioned in my family of origin is that we just attacked one another, like viciously. And so to arrive to, a conversation having any sense of neutrality, right, and that you're not going to have an opinion on anything is, well, it's such a big concept that I have to kind of completely wholesale my thinking process, right? In order to allow for that kind of a stopgap of neutrality in all situations. Ooh, right? So, being unwounded, right, is what we've been doing so much in here, is just talking about, right, unburdening ourselves from the past. If we can just achieve that one thing, to distance ourselves from what was and understand that there is no going back or attachment to it without participating in crazy. Or at best an illusion, right? At worst, just actual crazy. Because what we're attaching to in the past is an illusion of what was, but it no longer is. And so there's no way to get in there without the lens of the things just kind of unraveling in the way that they do once the moment is gone. So to be unwounded from anything in the past is to let go of all of it and not participate there and not even visit there, right? And to just allow to be what was. One thing I've kind of become aware of is that it's the concept that everything that I'm getting or have ever gotten, right, is what I needed in that moment, despite what I think about it. And so when I'm having a tough time, and there are plenty of those these days, when I'm having a tough time, I can just go, okay, I don't understand why this is going on right now, but I understand, right? Because I trust. I understand because I trust that what I'm receiving and getting right now in my life is in fact what I need, right? And then you couple that with the fact that everybody else that's around you is doing their best with what they have to work with in this day, and that they are just an expression of Creator having their own experience, right? And that we don't get to have a judgment on that or other people. It's remembering that other people are not the enemy, right? What's the enemy? Enemy, if we were supposed to have an enemy, right? If we're something that we're supposed to stand against, it's not other people. It's fear. And it's anger, and it's that type of density that's the bad guy, right? Not other people who are participating in that. Because if we lose sight of their humanity and see them as how they're acting and not seeing them as, God would see them, right? Just having an experiencing and they're going through what they need to go through and not having a judgment on that and blessing them and sending them on their way. Okay, go be crazy over there. Right? right? But that doesn't mean that you have to see them as the enemy. It's really hard to do, isn't it? Right? Because we want to attack. We want to be offended. We want to participate in all these low density vibrations, right? And that never gets us anywhere. This light is just going on. The world. Right? Because things happen all around us that we don't want or like, right? And our ego wants to rush in there and get involved and have an opinion. Here's the thing. There's no good way to participate in any of that. There's no good way to participate in thinking. There is a good way to participate in being. But there's no good, like nothing good ever comes from thinking or being a thinking person from that place, because thinking and thoughts have to are inextricable. What's the word? from the ego, from the mind of the ego. There will always be an attachment there, right? And so if we can let go of thinking, because what is thinking? Thinking is an illusion of things that are going on and things that you get yourself into that energy, right? That's the enemy, not others. When we work on ourselves as opposed to trying to work on the world, that's where we start to see improvement in the world. Right? Because it has to happen in here. What's going on out there is just a reflection of what's going on in here. So if you're a person who's going around the world thinking that others are not doing their best, you're going to behave one way. But if you're going throughout the world thinking that others are doing their best, and you know that they are, right? And you can bless them regardless of how, they're acting or living or behaving, and you can just let that go and know that they too are in good care, and that's none of your business, right? Stay seated in self, right? Like we've talked about so much, when we're inside ourselves and not in the world, right? When our attention is focused on what's going on in here, in this world, rather than what's going on in that world, right? That's when we can start to see improvement and start to unburden ourselves from the egoic mind, which is just, riddled with crazy, right? So it's letting go of the past. I am unwounded. How do you know that you're no longer wounded? Well, first of all, you will no longer talk about it, right? When we have evolved past the point of pain and all that, at least for me, I know that I will be healed from my faith-based trauma when I can kind of stop talking about it, right? Because who keeps bringing it in today, right? I keep bringing that trauma into today. That happened decades ago, right? I keep bringing it into today because I still keep talking about it. But when I can let that go and just watch it drift away into the distance and no longer bring it up and no longer, have it be rooted in my mind 24/7 and all of that. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't still be triggers and stuff will come up. I'm human, right? I mean, there is stuff that comes up. But when I'm not the one who's bringing it into today, I will know that I have healed from that I will know that I am unwounded from that, right? So we can let that go. But then being unwoundable, so if being unwounded is the past, then addressing being unwoundable, right? That requires us to connect to a higher place. Remember we were talking about the two realities before, there's the reality of man, turn on the news, because we see all of those thought constructs as real, right? And we feel threatened by thought constructs, which are what? Nothing. Illusion at best. So when we're not attaching ourselves and our sense of safety and our personal, worth in the world to anything else that's going on created by man, when we let that go and only attach our sense of self to what God created as opposed to what man created, that's when you begin to see and experience abundance, like we talked about before. So I am unwounded from the past, And I am unwoundable because I am connected to what? My own personal holiness, if you will, right? And nobody can touch that, right? We've been given the greatest gift of all. What's the greatest gift you've been given? It's you. You're the greatest gift you've been given. Your being, your expression of self, which is directly tied to Creator and the intelligence of the universe, right? So when we can attach that and say, okay, that is, God coming through me, right? And we talk a lot about in shamanism how we work to be the hollow bone, right? So that we can be an empty vessel, right? For new information, new things, new experiences, new learning, right? Not attached to the past, but that we can be a hollow bone for new information to flow through us. So if I'm unwoundable and I'm connected to my own personal holiness, right, in that way, in knowing that nothing that man can say or do affects me. Isn't that crazy? Like to just completely go, okay, the whole world of man, like no, and then move out here to the middle of the wilderness and only connect to the flowers and what's going on. Now, you still have to work and you still have to get a job and you still have to make life function, sure. But if you know that anything created in the mind of man will always give you a sense of lack, and that you can work on distancing yourself from that world to remain seated in self and to be fully unwoundable. Because you live in the present, right? How wounded are you in the present moment? Well, not at all. I'm in my studio, right? There's nobody attacking me. I'm only connecting my mind to my actual environment that is surrounding me. Not to any thought illusions and crazy and doing this and, blah, 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 blah. Because what are you doing when you get into that headspace? When you get angry and you get frustrated and you get disappointed and you start yelling and there's all this other things, right? Look at the energy that you're punching into yourself. Your container is your responsibility. Your vibe is your responsibility in terms of what you're bringing into this world, into this experience, and how you are interacting with others. Because we have a choice to make, don't we? And if we know that our other fellow humans can only possibly have a chance of evolving and moving through their process when they are surrounded with non-judgment and love. Because people don't evolve when they're being attacked, right? I mean, that just kills all chance of, because then suddenly the ego, right, on both sides is at full throttle, right? But if whoever you're in front of, whoever you're talking to, if you're basking them in nothing but light and love, right? And having the opportunity to have conversations that are rooted in curiosity rather than judgment, well, that changes everything, right? In terms of your own interaction with other humans every single day, every single time. Again, it's our container, and what am I putting in here? Am I putting in here frustration and anger and yelling, right? Do I want to live with that energy inside of me? No, I don't want to be all angst-ridden and angry. And that's a choice, depending on what, again, I'm attaching my mind to. There's lots of reasons to look around and be angry. There's lots of reasons for justified anger. You want to pick that up? You want to take that on? You want to live with that justified anger in you? You want to vibe with that, with justified anger? You can. Or you can just say, no, thank you. I'm not going to participate in that, right? Because I know participating in that, there's no good way to participate in that. Even justified anger, there's no good way to participate in that. Because you're participating in anger, right? Makes sense, right? There's no good way to participate in anger. Anything that's a dense, low vibration thought form, we want to let go. We don't want to fill our containers with that low density, angst and anger, right? So don't go there. That's a choice. And a lot of it has to do with, again, connecting to curiosity. Like, what's going on with this person? How can I help them? And I recognize that several times where I'm falling down is that when I get into an interaction, I'm thinking about me and how I'm doing and like how this person is perceiving me and how all of that is going on. I'm not thinking about them. And I recognize that that's where I'm falling down. I'm not taking care of others in my environment, right? Because that's the only way we move forward. That's the only way we evolve as as a culture, is to start taking care of one another again. Because we're all, whether we like it or not, headed to the same point, right? Many paths to the top of the same mountain. And that's where we're all headed. So to offer love and encouragement not only offers a moment for the miracle to happen where it's no longer rooted in the ego, but rooted in love. Our whole thought system, the whole thing going on, especially in the Western world, is based on a fear-based thought form, where it's one fear after another fear, after another fear, after another fear that's going on in your mind. Imagine if it was the opposite. If we had a love thought, which was followed by another love thought, that was followed by another love thought, that was followed by another love thought, regardless of what you were doing or who you were interacting with, right? It's a little tricky to get there, trust me, because we're so programmed to live in fear and not live in love. But again, when we abandon the mind, right, and get out of thinking, abandon that completely and get down into our heart consciousness. And how many videos have I done now about how to find the heart consciousness, right? To abandon the mind and get down into here where it just feels good. Why? Because you're just in your the present moment, in your current environment, having a nice day. Or maybe you're not. Because lots of those happen too, right? Because ultimately, what are we trying to save ourselves from? And that's where people are a little bit thrown off sometimes, because in order to do this work, you have to get what? Super, super selfish. Right? Remember how we talked about before that being self-centered, right, is the opposite side of the coin of being centered in self. One's just a higher vibration of the same thing, right? And so we want to go to that higher vibration of being centered in self, right? Not selfish down here, not, but centered in self truly, to understand that we can only affect change in the world once we can affect change in ourselves. Good luck. Right? Because that's the crazy of it, is that we go around trying to fix others and fix the world and trying to affect change, right? But from a place of ego and judgment, and that never gets us anywhere. It's not until we are truly in the heart consciousness that we can save ourselves from the number one thing, which is what? Illusion. Right? Saved from illusion, which is thought. I know it's so crazy. And you're like, well, how can I make decisions? Trust me. Your heart knows. Your heart can tell you. Your heart can inform you far better than the mind. Have you ever tried to think from a place of love, of caring, of being available and open to others? Right? Saving ourselves is the gig. Saving ourselves. You can't affect change on others, but what you can do is provide an environment for them to grow and foster, and that only happens when they're not being attacked. And that's up to us to, I know, because it's such my MO, right? I'll just go yell at people, it's great. They'll learn, they'll see. Right? We can only save ourselves. Self-awareness is the gift we give to ourselves. And it's there that we find that we are what? We are a light in the world. And what does that mean? To be the light in the world is to deliver understanding in each and every moment. I heard something this last week that I thought was really interesting. That God doesn't offer apologies or... I had to stop and think about that one. I had to come up with the right word because I knew that this was a big thing. And I was told this last week. That God doesn't offer forgiveness. And I was like, God doesn't offer forgiveness. Yep, that sounds right. Right? But the truth of the matter is, and as they went on to explain it, is that God doesn't offer forgiveness because he never judges. He never judges. So how can there be anything to forgive when he's never judged anybody? Imagine being that person, right? To operate fully with, nothing but love. And if love is defined as the absence of judgment, right? And you've never offered judgment, therefore there's nothing to forgive. Anyways, I was like, oh, that is a super interesting way of looking at it. That God doesn't offer forgiveness because he never judges, right? And so to be more like that, right? To save ourselves from the illusion, right, of the world and get into the being state, the beingness, right, with everything that is around us, and to be that light in the world which shines nothing but understanding and acceptance. Well, but also personal boundaries. So lots to work through. Anyways, that's what I wanted to share with you today, because the concept of being unwounded and unwoundable is very much where I am in my work right now. It's a wonderful concept in shamanism that at the beginning I didn't fully understand it, and it's now that I'm starting to grasp it a little bit. Anyways, that's where we are today. I hope that was helpful. I love this concept, and I will see you next time. Bye.